Hello.
Good morning, everyone, and a very warm welcome to all of you to the Jofus Anamwa Mensa Conference Center. I will please crave the indulgence of those outside to take a seat. Kindly get inside and find a seat because we'll be commencing very soon. Our invited guests will take their seats any moment from now and the ceremony will kick off. So please outside, those outside still doing the registration, kindly get in, take your seats so that we can get started. Thank you.
Thank you so much, School of Creative Arts, distinguished personalities, colleagues, students, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. You are welcome to the Joseph Adam Mensa Auditorium. Today, 11th of May 2022, we are having the maiden edition, of course this year, the maiden edition of ISSER Roadshow right here at the University of Education, Winneba. My name is Bismarck Odumsaki from the School of Communication and Media Studies, and I'm going to be your MC for this event together with my brother from Legon, Dr. Ralph Ama. To start the program, please, you will call the University Chaplain, Professor Alexander Edwards, to give us the opening prayer. Please, let's rise to pray.
Good morning. Let us all pray. And I want us to pray in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Acknowledging the fact that without Him we can do nothing. And that it is by your grace, O Lord, that you have gathered us from far and near. It is by your grace, O Lord, that we have even collaborated to see to it that there's a program like this. My prayer this morning is that, Father, you usher us into your presence, give us all the peace and the love. Let us understand the nitty-gritties of the things that we decide and talk about. But above all, let us believe that there is hope, even for our country, through this research work that we do. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Thank you so much, Professor Alexander Edwards, for that spirit-filled opening prayer. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, we are here for a very important discussion. I'll call it discussion because one of the main things we do here in this university is to create knowledge and disseminate it. Today, we are going to create knowledge and share knowledge. But before we start the program officially, I would like to introduce some dignitaries in our midst. Ladies and gentlemen, we have with us the Paramount Chief of the Futu Traditional Area, His Eminence, Neyi Gate the 7th. Please, a round of applause for Neyi Gate. Thank you so much. You are welcome, Neyi. If you were here last week, we just finished celebrating our Boache Festival, a very beautiful festival. You should have been here. If you're not here too, sorry, you missed. Come next year for the Boache Festival. Ladies and gentlemen, we have the Pro Vice Chancellor of the University of Education, Winneba. He's also from my school, the School of Communication and Media Studies, Professor Andy Ofoe-Brinkwan. Please, let's give that for Professor Andy Ofoe. Welcome, Professor. Ladies and gentlemen, we have the Municipal Chief Executive, my own friend, Honorable Alhaji Zubeiru Kasim, also here with us. Welcome, Honorable. We also have the presiding member of the Futu Municipal Assembly, Honorable Elizabeth Senna, also here with us. Honorable, thank you so much for coming. We have the Director of ISSER from the University of Ghana, also here with us. Professor Peter Kwate is here with us. Thank you so much, Prof, for coming. We also have another professor from ISSER, Reverend Professor Adobia Ya Owusu. A round of applause for. Thank you so much, Prof, and welcome. We have our own professor, my own mother, and of course the host for this event, the Dean of the School of Social Science. Ladies and gentlemen, Professor Lucy Atom. Thank you so much, Mom, for coming. In the course of the program, we will introduce the people in the course of the program. Ladies and gentlemen, to tell us the purpose of the gathering, or to give us the welcome remarks, we call our own Dean, the professor I just introduced, Professor Lucy Atom, to do that for us. Let's give that for our mom.
Thank you very much. The Honorable Central Regional Minister, Member of Parliament, Efutu Constituency, Neyigate the 7th, Omahine of Efutu Traditional Area, Pro Vice Chancellor, Registrar, Principals of Colleges, Director, ISSER, eminent presenters and staff from ISSER, deans, directors, deputy registrars, and heads of department present, members of convocation and staff of the University of Education, Winneba, Municipal Chief Executive, Efutu Municipal, members of security services present, special invited guests, media, students, ladies and gentlemen. I am honored to be invited to deliver the welcome address at the purpose of gathering for this all-important roadshow put together by the Institute of Statistical, Social and Economic Research, ISSER, under the auspices of the College of Humanities, University of Ghana Legon, in collaboration with the Faculty of Social Sciences Education of the University of Education, Winneba. On behalf of the University Governing Council and management, I wish to formally welcome you all to our noble institution, University of Excellence. We extend a special welcome to the Director and all staff of the Institute of Statistical, Social and Economic Research, ISSER, who are with us for this important report dissemination exercise. UEW is proud to be hosting you today as we deliberate on pertinent global developmental issues with particular reference to Ghana's economy. Indeed, Ghana has been at the crossroads of charting a self-sustaining path to development for a longer time. In the wake of the social and economic shocks globally, Ghana's plight appears to be exacerbating in contemporary times. It is therefore timely that as key stakeholders in the national development discourse, academics refocus and channel our contributions towards accelerated development interventions. Key among them is impactful research to influence policy change and upward social economic trajectory. The ISSER Roadshow, which has previously been held at the University of Cape Coast, Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, and now UEW, highlight the synergy among Ghana's public universities in advancing the quest for the betterment of our lot as a nation through public lectures on findings from groundbreaking research within the country. It is in this direction that the University of Education, Winneba, through the Faculty of Social Sciences Education, has been identified as a partner to further disseminate the state of the Ghanaian Economy Report and Ghana Social Development Outlook to faculty members, staff, students, the university community, and other dignitaries present. As a teacher education university, we have an area of potential to conduct research and enlighten the Ghanaian citizenry to understand the significance of research in solving the contemporary and persistent problems bedeviling the country. We therefore look forward to liaising further with ISSER in undertaking projects in the areas of education and social policy. To the participants present, I eagerly anticipate that this roadshow will furnish you with cutting-edge information on social and economic issues that will shape perspectives for citizen and agency action. Let network beyond this gathering as concerned and participatory actors for national and global development. On this note, I therefore declare the program open. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dean, for that welcome remarks. Thank you so much. Of course, if you hear that we are going to listen or we're going to receive a speech about the state of the economy, you know the people it comes from, right? Mostly it comes from the politicians. Today, it's coming from the academicians. So pick your pens and paper and make sure that you jot some down those, because you are really going to be educated. Thank you so much, Prof, for that. Ladies and gentlemen, to chair this program, we have a great personality to do that for us. I am not fit to introduce the person. I'll call the head of the University Relations Office, Dr. Oba Penny Edu Oforiwa, to help us with the introduction. Please, a round of applause for her.
The Pro Vice Chancellor, Nenyi Gati the 7th, Omahin of the Futu Traditional Area, the Municipal Chief Executive of the Futu Municipality, Director and staff of ISSER, Deans, Directors and Heads of Departments, Municipal and District Directors of Education, all protocol duly observed. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. I think this is better. The purpose for which we have gathered here this morning is one on research dissemination and development communication. And that being the focus of our meeting here, it behoves on us that in looking for a personality to steer the affairs of this enterprise, we pick somebody who is just not educated, but well-versed in development-led discussions, understands the dynamics in building resilient communities, and proactive in stakeholder engagement in building and strengthening collaborative ties. Ladies and gentlemen, the person to chair this program is Professor Andy Kwame Ofori-Brekwine. But right, Winds Band, thank you very much for playing the university anthem. However, please allow me to briefly tell you about the person who bears the name. I have only told you the name of the chairperson, but allow me a minute of your time so that you know who really bears the name Professor Andy Kwame Ofori-Bril-Crine. Professor Andy Ofori-Bril-Crine was formerly the Dean of the Faculty of Foreign Languages Education and Communication at the University of Education, Winneba, and currently an Associate Professor in the School of Communication and Media Studies, where he was the Dean of Department from August 2012 to July 2016. He teaches communication theory, development communication, qualitative research methods in communication, health communication, and culture and critical theory. As the Dean of the Faculty, he was instrumental in the introduction of new undergraduate communication programs of study in the erstwhile Department of Communication and Media Studies. Subsequent to his assumption of office as the Pro-Vice Chancellor, he was also instrumental in the creation of 3 additional departments that constituted into the establishment of the School of Communication and Media Studies. Ladies and gentlemen, our chairperson holds a PhD in Mass Communication and a Master of Arts in International Affairs, both from Ohio University in the United States. His research areas include communication and critical pedagogy, popular culture and African media, gender and media, media theories, development communication, health communication, as well as social media and identity research. Our chairperson is also the CEO of Center for Media and Development Communication, a consultancy in media research and development communication initiatives. In fact, he is a strong advocate of gender mainstreaming and feminist issues. The truth is that he identifies himself as a feminist. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I said I was going to be brief, and I know I'm very brief. I am pleased to inform you that from October 1st, 2021 to February 7, 2022, Professor Andy Ofori-Bril-Crine was the acting Vice Chancellor of this noble university. He is currently the Pro-Vice Chancellor of the university, a position he has occupied since April 1st, 2021. Ladies and gentlemen, cognizance of his PhD in Mass Communication, Masters in International Affairs, his many years' experience in development communication and policy, membership on International Communication Association and boards, and his role as a development communication lecturer at the School of Communication and Media Studies, we can count on the rich experiences of Professor Andy Ofori-Bril-Crine to chair this function. Prof, I humbly welcome you to the chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Obapenyi Oforiwa-Adu. Nenyi Gate, the 7th, Director of ISSER, Professor Korte, Honorable MCE, my own friend, Zubeida, aka Holy, Professor Asabia Ousu, and the Dean of the Faculty of Social Science Education, Professor Lucy Atum, all other deans and professors gathered here, members from our own colleagues from University of Ghana, graduate students, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It gives me a lot of pleasure and delight to be here on behalf of the Vice Chancellor, who for some very good reasons is unable to be here.
and on his behalf to chair this function. Let me indicate that on behalf of the Vice Chancellor, I accept to chair this function and go ahead to say a few things on why we gathered here and what we expect. Of course, I'm going to be very brief. Now, UW is proud to partner University of Ghana and at the faculty and institute level between our own Faculty of Social Science and the Institute for Statistical, Social, and Economic Research to have this forum. Over the years, ISSER has come to mean that think tank, that institute, that projects either gloom or optimism for the country. And so as we sit here, let me divide the audience into two. This is NDC, this is MPP. So anytime the institute decides to give us an outlook of the economy, whichever government in power is looking forward to optimism. If the government, if the other party, whichever party is in power, looks forward to optimism, whichever party is in opposition also looks forward to gloom. But we, as academics, look forward to objective assessment of what is happening in the country so that we can make projections and bring some kind of ideas for policy making. We are proud that today we are here, and the Faculty of Social Science Education should be commended for collaborating with our colleagues in Legon and bringing this roadshow, which can also be termed an academic roadshow, for us to witness. Already they indicated that they have been to KNUST, they have been to UCC, and they are here. And we are proud because probably in the post-COVID era, we might be one of the first beneficiaries of such a show. And I'm also proud to have the auditorium filled to capacity to listen to what's going to happen. Now, because the work they do is so relevant to us academics and to this country, it is important that we pay attention to the details that are going to be provided. Now, by them, I mean by the Institute, trying to offer us the opportunity to listen, to know what is happening, we in academia would attest to the fact that the essence of this forum is relevant for several reasons. One, in terms of research, we want to understand the basis of the data that drives the report. We want to have an insight into what it means to understand what is happening to your country as far as its economic and social outlook are concerned. We also know that we are breaking grounds in terms of knowledge, because if nothing at all, we in academia are very much interested in new ideas and how those ideas are broken in terms of grounds. So we are ready to listen to that. Again, at the height of everything, we are also interested in scholarship. What ideas drive what the report is going to be? What ideas drive the roadshow? The major components of what we are going to listen to, what are the ideas behind? And how do they influence and how do they bring out new ideas in scholarship? We know that over the years they've done a very comprehensive job. And we are proud to be associated this time that the report is going to be given to us. And the director of the center, the institute, Professor Kote, will lead this. Once again, UW is proud to be associated with this forum. If you look at the first row, we have most of our professors, deans, and heads of department gathered here. And for the next few hours, we will all be listening with rapt attention to the delivery by the director. Ladies and gentlemen, Nenyi Gate, on behalf of the Vice Chancellor, once again, I want to welcome you to this forum and to indicate that we are ready to support you. And of course, hope that instead of gloom, we'll hear something optimistic about the economy. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Prof. I'd like to stand on the protocols already established by the previous speakers to welcome all of you once again. Just to introduce a lot more people on the days, we have here with us from the University of Ghana and from ISSER, Professor George Owusu, who is the Dean of the School of Social Science. Let's welcome him. We have Dr. Isaac Osakoto, he's the head of the Economics Division at ISSER. We have Dr. Martha Awo, the head of the Social Division at ISSER. And then we have Dr. Fred Janku, he's the head of the Statistics and Surveys Division at ISSER. Thank you. We also have Chief Superintendent Dr. Dinam Zoku, he's the Commandant of the Ghana Police Command Staff College here at Winneba. Thank you very, very much for gracing this occasion. At this time, we would like to listen to, or like to rise on our feet, and the UEW Winds Band will lead us to sing the University of Ghana anthem. Thank you very much, the UEW Winds Band. We'd now like to take a statement from the director of ISSER, Professor Peter Quartey. I'd like to introduce him briefly before he comes to deliver a statement. So Professor Quartey holds a PhD in Development Economics from the University of Manchester and an MSc in Quantitative Development Economics from University of Warwick in the UK, sorry. Professor Quartey is, as I mentioned, a development economist. He is the director of ISSER. He has over 80 peer-reviewed publications in his name. He's a board member of the Agricultural Development Bank. And also a board member of RENAPRI. Thank you. So let's welcome Professor Peter Quartey as he brings us his statement.
Chairman, Pro Vice Chancellor of the University of Education, the Paramount Chief of Ewutu Senya, may I seek your permission to stand on the existing protocols well established by the Dean of the Faculty of Social Science Education to say good morning and welcome to all of you. I said good morning. Good morning. Thank you very much. I bring you warm greetings from Accra and from the University of Ghana and ISSER in particular. I will start by acknowledging colleagues here at the UEW, particularly colleagues at the Faculty of Social Sciences Education for their support in organizing the 2022 edition of the ISSER Roadshow. I would also like to thank the university management for warmly welcoming us. In fact, we didn't expect this large gathering. We normally do it with about 50, 100 people, and then with the media, we carry it across. But they told us they want to listen to us, and therefore, they're going to invite as many as possible. And I must say, we are so much amazed. So, Mr. Pro VC, if you can convey this to the Vice Chancellor, we are so excited by this commitment and show of love, and we would reciprocate at the appropriate time. Thank you. Putting together an event like this is no small feat, so we appreciate and celebrate your spirit of friendship and collaboration in making this event possible. ISSER Damo Ase. Akpe now. I hope I got it right. I also thank everyone who has made it here today. By participating in this event, you are contributing to advancing an aspect of our work that is so dear to us, and that is stakeholder engagement. It's not just stakeholder engagement, this also offers us the opportunity to deepen our collaboration with you. So I'm glad the Dean mentioned that we could collaborate further, and I think there is a lot of room for collaboration. I must mention that we currently have a project with IDRC worth 750,000 Canadian dollars. It's on early childhood education, and I think you are most situated to engage on this project and many other projects that we will be bidding for in the coming days or months. Ladies and gentlemen, we as an institute recognize the place and importance of stakeholder engagement and activities in advancing our commitment to delivering quality research and training, as well as fostering its continued growth and that of its stakeholders. As a regular convener of research dissemination and policy engagement events, we can attest to the power of this platform in reducing barriers and creating efficient interactions, all of which have been helpful in building beneficial partnerships and garnering feedback for enhancing social relevance of ISSER's work. The Roadshow is unique. It's a unique activity that gives the faculty of ISSER the opportunity to take a road trip outside Accra and to connect with different communities, making it a strong reflection of our commitment to continually invest in strong stakeholder relationships and tap into the insights of diverse communities. This Roadshow, dubbed Harnessing Stakeholder Engagement and Feedback for Research Impact, the activity has, over the years, seen the Institute collaborate with the Economics Department of KNUST, the University of Development Studies, Tamale, and the then College of Education and Distance Learning at the University of Cape Coast. Today we are here thanks to the university management, including the Dean of the Faculty of Social Science and Education, as well as one of our fine products, Dr. Atukwe Clotty. I don't know whether he's around. Perhaps if you don't know you have one of our fine products with you. He worked highly to get this organized. After a long silence due to COVID-19 pandemic, it is indeed refreshing for us to join you here today at UEW for ISSER Roadshow 2022 and to discuss the findings of recent publications by ISSER, namely State of Ghanaian Economy 2020 and the Ghana Social Development Outlook, as well as current developments in the economy and also on the social front. Mr. Chairman, it is my hope that our interactions today will generate fresh ideas and perspectives that will deepen the development impact of our work, individually and collectively. I also hope it will contribute to building and strengthening the ties that we need to make this happen. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prof. Quartey. In a minute, Prof will be returning with his overview of the State of the Ghanaian Economy Report. Before he does that, I'd like to acknowledge some sponsors for this program. And we have the Agricultural Development Bank, Stanbic Bank, and then the Republic Bank. Let's clap for them. They've done so well to sponsor this event. Thank you. Prof. Quartey.
So you see how these banks believe in what we do, and every year they support the publication as well as dissemination of the work, the output we churn out. ADB, we thank you. Stanbic, we thank you. And then all our potential sponsors, you are very much welcome. So if you can project the presentation, I'll be grateful. Yes. Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, the Institute of Statistical Social Economic Research has since 1990 continued to publish the State of the Ghanaian Economy Report, SGER, as well as the Social Development Outlook, which Professor Rubia would also present as soon as I'm done in 30 minutes, I promise. The SGER contains 8 chapters, including the overview. So we normally have the fiscal development, financial and monetary sector development, international trade and payments, agricultural sector, industrial sector, services, and then an optional chapter. The last one, we looked at the banking sector reforms. We launched the 30th edition of the publication and also presented a mid-year review of the economy in 2021. So you can see we have consistently, since 1990, been publishing this report. I thought you would clap for us. Today, we'll discuss Ghana's economy, sources and challenges. I want us to deviate. I'm not presenting the report because it's 2020 report. We've gone beyond that. So we'll look at 2020 and beyond and look at our state of economy, talk about current happenings. I'm sure some of you would like to hear about e-levy. Yes, so we'll talk about all of that. So success and challenges and ways to boost the economy in these challenging times through a non-partisan lens. So I hear this NDC, right, and this MPP. So we are not going to use any of your lenses to look at the economy. It's just going to be strictly the Ghanaian economy. Now, we have various authors, as you can see, all the chapter authors. We also have reviewers. So this is a peer-reviewed publication. When we come out, it goes through the mail. The names, to save time, I won't mention every name, but you see the names out there. Sometimes we even collaborate with our colleagues from the economics department where I used to be head of department for 6 years. Some of them we co-opt some of them to come and even, but a lot of reviewers are from the Department of Economics. Most of my colleagues are here, the authors are here. If you are here, please wave. Let's see you. Yes. So you see most of the authors are here today dressed in our ISSER cloth. So if we can go to the next one, I want to look at the global development. So what happens globally is going to impact on our economy. Russia, Ukraine has impact on our economy. COVID-19 has impact on our economy. When China is growing, is booming, it's going to affect our economy. So we look at the global economy, and it's seen that in 2021, it was estimated to grow by 5.9, and by 2022, grow much less. Global trade going to quite unstable, and the Russia-Ukraine war has maybe made it worse. Inflation in advanced countries are expected to fall after the pandemic levels by mid-2020. What you see, the next one, is the impact of COVID on GDP. You see the one highlighted in red, and that is sub-Saharan Africa, where you and I find ourselves. It's been projected that COVID is going to reduce our GDP by 4.5%. If it had not been COVID, we would have grown much higher. But as a result of COVID, our GDP growth will be reduced by 4.5 percentage points, as is being highlighted in the table here. Let me now quickly move on to some of our successes and challenges. In 2021, we grew by about 5.something percent, 5.8%. You see Ghana, that's where I put a red arrow to show. You see where we are. So we've grown quite well in the midst of countries like United States, Italy, etc. You'll find Nigeria among the bottom three. So it tells you South Africa, you can see South Africa well below Ghana. So it tells you that the economy, despite all the challenges, is growing. So that's a sign of prospects, that there are prospects despite the challenges we face in our economy. The next one, of course, that shows the growth rate within Africa. You see Ghana growing at 5.4% in 2021. And if you look at the African continent, the countries I have shown, we come rank quite high when it comes to GDP growth. Then let me also touch on the sectors of the economy, and then with some projections. You can see agriculture, industry, and services. We see industry picking up. It's been projected by 2025, industry will grow by about 7.1%. So again, it shows that there are prospects in terms of GDP growth. Any economy that is not growing has severe repercussions on people's livelihood. Sometimes when these numbers are presented, we take them for granted. Inflation, exchange rate, then you say, I don't feel it in my pocket. What does it mean? You feel it in your pocket. Due to inflation, your living standards decline, etc. When there is no growth, we cannot employ more people, incomes decline, and so on and so forth. So we can see prospects in terms of GDP growth. What we see by subsector is what is presented in the table. Please, next slide, please. Agricultural sector growth in 2020, 2021. We've seen, you see a change where fishing also shows some positive growth of 13.4. Crops also increasing, and so on and so forth. So our agricultural sector also showed great signs of resilience, especially during COVID. Agri was one of the main sectors that showed resilience. The hotel tourism went down, but agri showed resilience. Industry, again, you see some of the subsectors that grew, manufacturing, electricity, water and sewage, construction, mining and quarrying went down, of which oil and gas also went down. Yes, oil and gas went down because during that period, oil prices went down. Oil prices kept falling. In fact, it fell to a very low level, and that accounts for this. Because airlines were not flying, industries were not producing, etc., it affected oil prices. But now we've seen a rise in oil prices, so that should be a windfall for us, although we import quite a lot of processed oil. So again, on the next table, you find services. The services sector, usually it is ICT that drives the sector. ICT, the hotel and the rest could not do so well. But ICT, information technology, grew by 33.1%, and also real estate. Previously, it was the banking sector as well. When you take ICT, the banking sector used to, but financial services, you've seen, grew by 2.4% as a result of the financial sector reforms, the collapse of banks, and etc. So they are now picking up to take up their rightful place. Mr. Chairman, one thing we want to highlight is the issue of employment, unemployment. As you grow, you want to see that this translates into employment. But from the table out there, I want to highlight the case of gender. No, I don't have this table here. Yeah. I want to highlight the case of vulnerable unemployment. You see, we have a lot of people who are in vulnerable unemployment, or vulnerable employment. That is 2017, 66.2, and it's even worse. So vulnerable in the sense that the least occurrence or shock to the economy, these people will be out of jobs, and it's quite significant, 66.2%. Yes, this is a table I wanted to highlight. When it comes to male unemployment and female unemployment, the 2020-2021 population census tells you, in the last two columns, you see in the 2010 population census, male unemployment was 5.4, and then 2021 is 11.6. It's doubled. Female unemployment, 6.3. It is now, in 2021, 15.5%. That is quite striking, worrying. Then the worst of it is youth unemployment, 15 to 24, those aged 15 to 24. The 2000 population census data shows that was 16.7. Then it declined in the 2010 population census. Then the 2021 population census data shows that 32.8% of our youth are unemployed. That, for me, calls for policy reaction, a quick way of fixing this in the long term as well, so that we address this major challenge facing our economy. So I will skip this table. It's just a summary of the key indicators I have discussed. Let me spend a few minutes on the medium-term strategies in the 2022 budget statement. Some of the things that were said in the budget statement to try and address our challenges. So it was to achieve a reasonable surplus to stabilize the public debt in order to reduce borrowing costs over time. In furtherance of this, a fiscal deficit target of 7.4% of GDP compared to 12.1% of GDP for 2021. This implies a fiscal consolidation of 4.7 percentage points in 2022. We say this is very bold and overly ambitious. And at the time when we presented, we asked the question, will this be achieved without civil agitations? If you're going to reduce the fiscal deficit by so much, you are not spending, you want to reduce the deficit by so much, won't it lead to agitations? And that is what we are seeing, as if it was a prophecy. You see labor agitations and so on and so forth. Some fighting for neutrality allowance and all that. So it tells you that you can achieve some consolidation, but not so drastic. Primary surplus of 0.1 and then the financing measures as well were highlighted. In terms of the medium-term strategy, we anticipated that our total revenue and grants in 2022 will be 20% of GDP, from 14.0 in 2021 to 20%. This means in 2022 alone, we are going to increase our revenue by 42.9%. Again, the question is, how realistic and achievable is that? So we really interrogated the budget statement. That report, of course, calls for revenue mobilization measures, very aggressive one, through digitalization, of course. Then total expenditure also was earmarked to increase by 23.2%. Our debt GDP is also an issue. External 47.9%. Then domestic debt is 52.1% in terms of the relative shares. You also find, Mr. Chairman, that in the 2022 budget, capital expenditure is only 2.1%. My basic economic theory tells me that you need to save and invest 15 to 20% of your income. Save 15 to 20% of your income in order to grow. That is the basic standard we expect. So if you are going to invest only 2.1%, then you know you are in for trouble. So that's, again, calls for policy reaction. On this table, I will not go through everything, but one thing I want to highlight is that when we take out of our revenue, when you take away interest payments, you take away domestic compensation to workers. So interest payment to domestic revenue is 38% from the budget statement we read. Compensation to workers is 36%. Then statutory payments is 27%. If you add all of this, it means you are left with very little or nothing for capital expenditure. That is why we resort to borrowing. So if you want to understand why our debt GDP is so high, it is because we spend so much on interest payments, on compensating for workers, and then also on statutory payments like national health insurance and the rest. We ought to look at concessional financing because we are paying so much to service our debts. So there were some strategies that were proposed in the budget statement. One is the revised tax exemption bill. Unified common platform for property rates is one area that we have not been doing well at all. About half, we spend like $500 million. We receive like $500 million from property rates if you look at the budget statement. And if you look at the value of properties in Ghana, in Accra, and we only collect $500 million cedis in property rates, it tells you we are not doing enough. Of course, the issue of restoration of benchmark values, then the e-levy, initially 1.5, 1.75, and reduced to 1.5. We again make the point that we think the 1.5 is punitive, it's too high. We could do with a lower rate, get everybody on board, raise the needed revenue, and be able to finance the expenditures. Let me make this point before I continue, that I don't think e-levy itself is a bad thing. What we could have done is, one, to sensitize the populace, educate them very well, and two, to start with a lower rate. I don't think the rate we are charging now is optimal. I strongly believe it's not optimal. So again, some discussions on fees and charges, review of the VAT rate system, review of the withholding tax on sale of unprocessed gold, then NAPCO to transition from to youth start. Again, here we call for evaluation of NAPCO. We think it's a way. You saw the figure, 32-point-something% of our youth are unemployed. So if there is a policy or program to absorb them into gainful employment, for me, I strongly support it. But I think we need to evaluate it to see where there are weaknesses, so we try to fill those weaknesses or address those weaknesses. So I need to ascertain its effectiveness and how it's providing value to money. And we also believe there should be a strong partnership with the private sector to make the program successful. Government alone cannot absorb this. Liaise with the private sector so that we make it more successful. Mr. Chairman, we looked at the issue of debt sustainability, debt GDP ratio, and some of the figures are what we see. Ours is still on the high side. At the moment, debt GDP is about 81%, which is above the sustainable threshold. That is why we are spending so much on interest payments and debt service, etc. So we ought to raise more revenue domestically. The table you find here is telling you the various ratios. There are different ways of measuring debt sustainability. We look at debt GDP, we look at debt service to domestic revenue, interest payment to domestic revenue, debt service to export revenue, and so on and so forth. We have a paper on this. So our debt GDP ratio is 80.1% compared to 61.2% at end 2020. And one other problem we've had is the Eurobond market. We've gone to the Eurobond market to borrow consistently, not just Ghana, many African countries. You see from the chart or the graph you see, many African countries have gone to the Eurobond market. And we need to pull the brakes because if you recall the debt problems of the 70s, the petrodollar monies that were circulating, developing countries moved from borrowing from concessional sources, but there were petrodollar monies that were being thrown at them. So they moved into borrowing more from these kinds of borrowing. Concessional loans, interest rates are very low, sometimes 1%, less than 1%, 2%. If you go to the Eurobond market, 8%, 9%, etc., that is something that you're certainly going to pay at a very high cost. So this is a caution to be very cautious as we continue to borrow from the international market. Mr. Chairman, the last session that I want to talk about is options for stabilization or boosting the Ghanaian economy. And I first want to talk about the woes of 2022 quarter one. In fact, we were fine until after December 2021, January to March. That is when our problems started surfacing or becoming more prominent. Crude oil price per barrel increased from $74.1 in December 2021 to $130 as at March 7, 2022, before it moderated to $115 as of March 24. So you can see the movement, $74.17 to $115. That is what is reflecting in the pump prices, of course, including taxes. U.S. inflation increased from 1.4 in January, 1.44% in January to 7.9 in February. Inflation in Germany also increased in January to 5.1 in February. Similarly, UK inflation is about 5%. In fact, I met the British High Commissioner and they admitted this is the highest rate of inflation Britain has recorded since 1992. So the picture we see is not just limited to Ghana, it's a global problem that we are all facing. Of course, COVID-19 has also struck most of developing countries, so there has been downgrades. So we saw Fitch downgrade us, and that also brought its own problems. Inflation in Ghana currently is at 19.4% as of March 2022. Food inflation increased, and also as well as non-food inflation. The cedi had depreciated quite rapidly. Now there is some stability, but also we've seen depreciation in the cedi so rapidly. Our debt GDP has also increased quite astronomically. So some measures, corrective measures were put in place. One is the expenditure cutting measures. There's going to be discretionary spending to be further cut by additional 10%, 50% cut in fuel coupon allocations to political appointees, moratorium on purchase of imported vehicles for the rest of the year, moratorium on all foreign travels, and then ongoing measures to eliminate those ghosts that are paid on our payroll How they spend that money, we don't know, but they are ghosts. Yeah, they get paid and they spend the money. Then expenditure cutting measures, again, the IPPs, there are a lot of excess capacity that we are not using, but we are paying for them. So there is some negotiation to reduce that as well. Moratorium on establishment of new public sector institutions, prioritizing ongoing projects, SOEs, heads of ministers also to contribute 30% of their salaries to the consolidated fund. All of these are measures to correct the imbalance. Then revenue measures, implementation and collection of revised property rates. As I mentioned, we haven't done well at all. There's a lot of room for improvement, a lot of lands that have not been developed in high property areas. If we start taxing them, owners will either sell or develop them, and government can raise revenue. Implementing the EVAT e-commerce system, roll out a simplified tax filing application, and then the passing of the e-levy tax exemptions bill and fills charges. We've seen e-levy being passed. Then the race revenue assurance enforcement measure, government to partner with private sector to ensure digitalization of the mining and quarrying sector. And then no duty, no exit at the port, and so on and so forth. Then Bank of Ghana also introduced a few measures, increase the policy rate from 14.5 to 17%, increase the reserve requirement by 50%. That has significant effect on the banking sector. If they have to mobilize funds and then keep 50%, how much reserve they keep have to be increased. That can also affect the banking sector and its operation. Capital adequacy ratio also increased. Then the reclassification of loans, again, moved back to the pre-pandemic era. These are all measures to reduce excessive liquidity, because the thinking is that there was excessive liquidity in the system, and banks were mobilizing those funds to buy foreign exchange, engage in foreign exchange trading, and that accounts for, that's one of the reasons why the exchange rate was fluctuating. I believe certainly that has worked to some extent. We've seen some stability out there. And other measures, that including the aggressive mobilization of non-tax revenue, property rates. I think I mentioned that in our 2022 budget we earmarked 468 million. That is woefully inadequate. Tax exemption is huge. As of 2021, import exemptions alone, there's import exemption, there's also VAT exemption, etc. Import exemption alone is 4.1 billion. E-levy is going to collect 4.5 billion. So if you are giving 4.1 billion out as tax exemptions, then you can imagine if you're able to save half of this, that is a lot of money. Then I think we recommend the introduction of the toll system, the e-pass system. We don't think the removal is appropriate, in the sense that if you want to enter into PPP and a private investor comes to invest and we are used to free, it becomes a problem. So we encourage that we rather make it efficient rather than removing it completely. Again, e-levy, I think I've discussed e-levy, that I prefer e-levy at a much lower rate to going to the IMF, because the IMF will bring its own sanctions, its own conditionalities. You cannot employ. There's a freeze on employment and so on and so forth. But if there's a tax system that will mobilize revenue and train the youth, engage the youth start, if it's well done, I believe would help us reduce the youth unemployment situation we have on hand. But the current rate is going to certainly affect e-commerce and the digitalization agenda we are pushing. There's been some studies to show a few other countries that have introduced the e-levy, and some have even withdrawn the tax. If you read the work of Clifford, you find more of that in there. Okay, so e-levy has been passed. It has positive and negative stabilizing or destabilizing effects. In terms of the positive, it will boost investor confidence, because when there's a revenue gap, foreign investors become jittery. when they engage us, they tell us, how do you find the revenue? So they themselves, if you are not comfortable, they don't want to invest in your country. Government receive revenue to finance youth staff. We minimize borrowing. Revenue targets cannot be met. And then increased cost in terms of destabilizing effects, it's going to lead to increased cost to consumers of e-transfers. It can lead to increased cash-based transactions and other banking services, and we have seen signs of this, and it can affect the digitalization agenda. There are several other options that we propose: regular audit of public institutions, debt restructuring of existing loans so that repayment becomes spread over a longer period, so that it will free some resources for us to engage in development. So, Mr. Chairman, I would like to conclude here. That Ghana's economy has suffered some turbulent moments, especially during the first quarter of 2022. Global commodity price increases resulting from COVID-19, as well as the Russia-Ukraine war, and then the downgrade that followed, has affected some of the key fundamentals of our economy. Government's fiscal and monetary response has started to yield some fruits, but there is a need for long-term measures to stabilize the economy and make it more resilient to shocks. As I mentioned earlier, there are prospects. Our growth rates show that there are prospects for the economy to engage in more economic activity, employ more people, etc. But of course, there are challenges, and we ought to have systems that will help us withstand the shocks as and when they come. E-levy requires extensive education. I personally had an encounter. I transferred money to my sister, and then she went to withdraw, and I said, there's a mistake. When she went to cash out, she wasn't charged. I said, yes, you don't pay. She said, oh, really? Then she got very excited. But if that education has gone out, this people going around withdrawing their funds and so on and so forth would have helped. I don't think the town hall meetings alone have done the job. There is a need for more extensive education. Need for more revenue mobilization through digitalization, broaden the tax base to introduce efficiency, expenditure rationalization, and minimize waste. There's a lot of waste in the system. If you look at the Auditor General's report, it's sickening how much every year we highlight them, but nobody gets prosecuted. So we need to work on that. Invest in agri value chain. Agriculture is growing, but the value chain, not just agri. How do you move agri into processing? One district, one factory. Let's focus on that and make a 1D, 1F better so that we add more value to agriculture. Manufacturing is key. Agri and manufacturing employs a greater proportion of the labor force. So if you invest in these two sectors, certainly you would create jobs and minimize some of these agitations. And then lastly, we recommend a review of some of the flagship programs to ensure value for money. We are not asking that they are scrapped, but a review to show where there are weaknesses, where there are challenges, they can be addressed. Mr. Chairman, I thank you very much for your audience. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Korte, for your presentation. I'm sure you have some nudging questions that you would like to put to Prof. So we'll come to that, don't worry. I'm sure you're thinking about the e-levy and so many other things that you would like to ask questions about. So just take it easy for now. Before we move on, I'd like to introduce a few more people. We have in our midst the eminent members of a traditional council. Let's appreciate them for coming. We also have Madame Mercy Essien, the Deputy Central Regional Director of NCCE. We have Mr. Joseph Abam, the Municipal Director of NCCE. Mr. Benjamin Kwesi Asare, the head Regional Planning and Statistics Unit, GES Central Region. Thank you. Mrs. Mabel Judith Micah, the Director of Education, Ifutu Municipality. Thank you very much for coming. We'll be hearing another presentation, but before then, we'd like to welcome the School of Creative Arts, UEW. They'll be performing the Bamaya dance from the Dagomba people. Let's clap for them as they come and perform their dance.
Let's give it up for them. I miss my days at the School of Creative Arts. Very interesting. I used to be a dancer, you know. Yeah. Anyway, that was Bamaya dance, and it's a dance of the people of Dagomba. So, thank you, School of Creative Arts, for that wonderful performance. When Prof was doing your presentation, you know, as a media person, I was just thinking through some frames that the media will give to your presentations, and I was looking at some, the pro-MPP and the pro-NDC. So I was getting that one will say, E-levy rate is not optimal. Professor Korte, that picture, if you see it, you will not even be able to identify yourself. So you see how they will frame it. One will frame it in a good way, and one will frame it in a bad way. That's the media for you, and they are here. Please, a round of applause for the media. And let me remind you that this program is streaming live on Radio Winnipeg 98.3, the campus radio station, and you can go on all our handles and it's streaming live there. Thank you. I would have to introduce some more professors. We have the Professor Samuel Kwesi Esieduato, my own friend, the Dean of Graduate School with us. Please, let's give him a hand. And we have Professor Awezu Imuruna Brima, the Dean of School of Business. Thank you so much, Prof, for gracing this occasion. We have Dr. Golo, the Vice Dean of Center for International Programming, also with us. Thank you so much, Doctor. And we have the President of the local chapter of University Teachers Association of Ghana, UTAG, Mr. Eric Nketia, also with us. A round of applause for him. Thank you so much. We have another presentation, and my colleague will do that introduction.
Thank you, Bismarck. I think you can robe and then give us the last dance before we go, right? Anyway, all right, we'll be listening to our next presentation by Reverend Professor Adobia Owusu. She's an associate professor of medical sociology and public health at ISSER. She has a PhD in public health and an MA both from the University of North Texas in the US. A specialty area is in medical sociology, public health and development. She has about 79 peer-reviewed publications under her belt. She's the immediate past head of a social division at ISSER. She's also an ordained Reverend Minister of the Presbyterian Church of Ghana. She wants me to add that she's a mother of 2 young men. Let's welcome Reverend Adobia Owusu as she presents.
Thank you, Ralph, and good morning, audience. So I present the Ghana Social Development Outlook. Thank you. The Ghana Social Development Outlook has been a series of editions of a book that captures a lot about Ghana's social development. Some of the focus in this presentation will be in the 2020 edition, that is the most recent edition. It is a biannual publication. So right now we're also writing the 2020. Help to write this publication, and this is the list of authors. If you are here, please give us a wave. Authors for the last one, and for almost all the series. Also, we have people who reviewed it for us. So again, this is an externally reviewed publication. These are the colleagues who served as reviewers, most of them from the University of Ghana, but certainly not from ISSER, and some of them from industry and also some universities abroad. The Ghana Social Development Outlook usually covers about 10 thematic areas that are very important to the social development of Ghana. These are health, education, environment, housing, water and sanitation, work and employment, social values of Ghanaians, gender, governance, and energy. I've already mentioned that the focus will be on the 2020 GSDO. Nevertheless, we talk beyond that because we have moved beyond 2020. The GSDO looks at progress, challenges, and recommendations as well to these social issues. I've mentioned that it is a biennial publication, and the first one started in 2010 up to 2020, so we have 5 editions. Typically, we concentrate on key indicators that we use to assess the development of Ghana, which I have already mentioned: health, water and sanitation, energy, etc. But sometimes, too, within these key thematic areas, we also look at outstanding issues. So for the 2014 and the 2020 edition, we decided to look at issues that are very critical and of concern or importance. We aim the GSDO, civil society organizations, policymakers, governmental agencies, and the government of Ghana. The GSDO examines progress and challenges in social development in Ghana under 4 broad thematic areas: quality of life, material conditions, sustainability, governance, and social values. The 2021, that is the most recent one, focused on gender gap in Ghana and its implications for public discourse and sustainable development. It also looked at the impact of COVID-19 in the analysis of social policy and social development. And then finally, it looked like social values and the Ghana Beyond Aid agenda, which is a unique addition for the most recent edition. So I'll talk to it chapter by chapter based on the broad thematic areas. In terms of education, the heading for the chapter assesses the high school to higher education in Ghana, the challenges and opportunities based on the free senior high school. After high school, what happens? Progress. We notice a growth towards achieving universal basic and secondary education for all. We all are aware that we have free fees in terms of tuition and feeding, and a lot of investment has also gone into the infrastructure at the basic and secondary school levels. Nevertheless, there are challenges, as you may be aware. Based on the focus of this chapter, we notice poor rate of transition from secondary to higher education, and then challenges with space, human resource, and costs. Recommendations. There is the need to leverage ICT